trying to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are distressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thanks for coming on Everything Sparkle. I'm happy I finally got you on.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Okay, so explain what you have going on and what kind of doctor you are.
Okay. Well, I am a triple board certified physician in anesthesia, pediatric anesthesia, and integrated medicine. So I've done a whole bunch of everything throughout my career. But I think what you want to talk about is my ketamine clinic.
Okay, but so how did you get into that from all of these things?
So after I did my pediatric fellowship in LA, I moved up to Northern California because my son was, he was on the spectrum. So we were trying to look for somewhere that was more healing than LA. Like, I love LA, but it was just kind of a little crazy. So we moved up to Northern California without a job. My ex-husband and I, we moved up there without a job, without any plan, but we're like—
And he's a surgeon.
He's a surgeon.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, we'll just wing it. So over the next few years, I picked up odd and end jobs, 2 days here, 2 days there. And over a period of about 4 or 5 years, I kind of started my own little mini practice where I would, staff different places and run them and do their codes and their drills and their inventory and hiring and training. And I just kind of built up my own independent practice with other anesthesiologists that worked, that I would bring on. So that was all good. And there was this one day I was working with a plastic surgeon, and he said, listen, my friend, Dr. Gordon, needs somebody to pick up his patient who's flying in from another state, and they need a California board certified anesthesiologist to recover this patient. And I said, well, sure, fine. I can help with that. And I'd always wanted to meet Dr. Gordon, Eric Gordon. He's awesome. We're good friends now, but up to that point, I hadn't met him. So I said, okay, I'll do this for you. And I meet this patient and their family. I ended up working with them for a year as their private physician.
Wow.
And while I was working with them, discovered working with ketamine, because I had used it as an anesthesiologist, but it's kind of like a dirty drug when you use it for anesthesia because it makes you have all these secretions. It kind of makes you really kind of out of it. It's not a nice anesthetic. Like when you come out of a surgery on ketamine, you're kind of wild, just because of the way the receptors that it hits. So there's cleaner medication. So I never really had a lot of experience until I worked with this family. So I started working with ketamine and this one patient and discovered all the ways it can be helpful. So for, the entire year of 2018, I just kept working with this medicine in this one patient and just trying to figure out how can it be helpful? What are other things you can use with it? So I learned how to do sensory integration, like working with tuning forks, working with vibration, working with light and sound and color, working with all of these cool other modalities to kind of retrain the nervous system out of a stress response and into a healing response.
Wow.
So then after that year, he had moved on to do what he was going to do. I opened up my own ketamine practice in South San Francisco, and I've been doing that since.
And so what have you noticed? Like, you open that up and you have people that work there, and so they all work with ketamine. What was the response like between the patients?
So I'm in my friend's practice, and I'm the only ketamine provider in that practice.
Oh, okay.
So I work out of one of his rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were all like, what is this ketamine therapy? They hadn't really seen it or worked with it, or their patients hadn't used it. And so, immediately it was working. For patients that were coming in, maybe they were identified with their illness, like I am a Lyme patient, okay, versus I have Lyme disease, or I have Lyme disease and I'm in remission, or whatever that is. Like, they were fully identified with their disease process. I am a breast cancer survivor, or I am a rape survivor, or I am a this. Like, they
so
were
that's a very
thing.
broad range of patients you had.
Yeah. So we noticed that it helped with self-identification, like to be able to regain who you are outside of your disease process. Like, that was huge. Then I found it was helpful with end-of-life care, where people are like, I know there's things I have to do before I die, and I know I'm dying. but it's so overwhelming. Like there's a million things I could do before I die. And they have the ketamine treatments and they're like, okay, these are the 3 things that are the most important to me. It kind of, what I say is it closes all the open tabs and then it's like Control-Alt-Delete. It's just a complete reset.
Wow.
So it's been super helpful. It's been helpful for patients. It's been studied, where I kind of got the idea of how to use it is the VA was using it for PTSD and their soldiers that came back from war. And they weren't even using it for PTSD initially. They were using it because the soldiers would come back with injuries, burns and whatnot. And when you have a burn, you have to change the dressing every day or every other day because it gets infected and you don't have a skin to protect you. And changing the dressing is some of the most painful things you can imagine. And so they give ketamine right before they do the dressing change so they're not dying in pain because they don't want to give them narcotics. They don't want to give them something that's going to cause a problem. And ketamine was really useful. And what they noticed is, wow, not only are we getting these burn dressing changes, but the soldiers are recovering from their PTSD. So it was an accidental finding through the VA. So they developed this protocol where they give a certain amount of ketamine for 5 to 7 days over about 2 weeks. So the patient has to keep coming every day for this treatment because that's what they did changing the burn dressings. Nobody really asked the question of, what's the optimal dosing for ketamine? They just kind of repeat what they accidentally found.
Okay.
So most other clinics, if you go to anywhere in California, anywhere in the US really, that offers ketamine infusion therapy, they're going to say 5 to 7 treatments over 2 weeks because they are just copying the VA model.
But that's not necessarily the case. It's not how it should be.
That's not what I found. So when I was working with that family and I was using it with that patient, one treatment could last 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. So I would bring my patients in, a brand new patient, and we would have this experience, their ketamine infusion, and, they would say, when do we come back next? And I said, well, you're going to tell me. Because what people experience on ketamine is, they come in, and I do the history and everything that the doctor should do to make sure they're the right candidate, because some people shouldn't have it. If you have baseline psychosis or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, things like that.
Because that'll make the reverse effect of what?
It could make you more dissociated, where you go out and don't come back in. So I do all the, the pre-workup, and then, the patient's laying down on the table, they have an IV, and I start the infusion, and they slowly start to dissociate. And so what dissociation is when you are no longer using your frontal lobe. Your frontal lobe is offline.
Okay.
So you are basically living in your amygdala hippocampus. So your frontal lobe gives you reason. It gives you an idea of who you are and why you're in a certain place. If you are on ketamine, you might see a door in the room and you might say, okay, I know that's a door, but I don't know what it's used for. Like you can't put things together. Everything is, you're dissociated. The benefit of that is when we are in trauma response, chronic PTSD, chronic depression, self-identification with illness, it's our frontal lobe telling us all of those things. Our frontal lobe says, okay, I feel anxiety, and this is what I think about my anxiety. And I feel anxiety, and this is what I think about it. That's all amygdala, frontal lobe, amygdala, frontal lobe. So you are having monkey mind. You're thinking about feeling, and you get stuck in these patterns. And so the ketamine takes the frontal lobe just offline.
So then where does your thought process go at that point?
You're in a feeling state. The thoughts aren't really there. It's almost all feeling. It's all pure feeling without thinking about what does that feeling mean. So a lot of people say, they ask me to describe what the feeling is. And I've never actually used ketamine, which is different than a psychotherapist. They are encouraged to use ketamine before they give it to their patients. They're encouraged to know what it's like. I've never used it, so I just have the experience of,
Why haven't you?
That's a really good question. I think when I started this journey with consciousness medicine, it was really important to me that I stayed separated from that I stayed objective about it.
Because if you did it, then you might have all these preconceived notions that you think it's for everybody, like that is just for your experience, not
like
theirs.
somebody that does ayahuasca is like, oh my gosh, everyone should do ayahuasca, right? Like that's a
right,
thing, right? Like everyone should.
So you didn't want to be jaded in your thinking.
I wanted to just maintain like my clinical stance on it. So, so the patients will come in and they'll have this experience, and it's different every time. Every time. And of course, the first time someone has their experience, everyone thinks they're going to die. Like it's just a thing. You think you're going to die. You're like, okay, I'm going to have this ketamine infusion here in this doctor's office. I've never met this doctor. And like just, it goes through everyone's mind, you know? And I even like say it. I'm like, you're not going to die. And they all laugh. They always, you know, like, so they have this experience, and it's different every time, but it's always a feeling of wonder. You know, this like, wow, there's something bigger than me. People that don't even have a religious background might come back from this experience and say, okay, I talked with God. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But they have this feeling that there's something bigger than them out there. And it really gives them kind of this like peace, you know? Almost every patient feels better afterwards, and there's no telling what that means. I've had patients who they were chronically hypothermic, you know, their temperature is 96. They just can't get a normal body temperature.
Wow.
They're always cold, you know, they have chronic medical disease. I've had patient after one treatment, their body temperature is 98.2. Like after years of being in the 96s. Wow. I've had patients that can now cook their own meals. They haven't been able to prepare anything or do anything because they can't get out of bed. I've had patients that they wake up every night from sleep in this like startle response, this trauma response. 50 times a night, that goes away. I've had patients with chronic pain go away and they're off all of their narcotics and all of their pain medicine. I've had patients recover from just, I can't explain why, but patients will come off of their high cholesterol medicines or high blood pressure medicine. So maybe there's an inflammatory
Is this
component.
addictive in any way? Why is it better to be on this than to be on medications?
So that's a really good question. And that's why I took the approach of just giving somebody one treatment and then reassess. Because you'll be able to tell after a certain amount of time goes by. What happens is after the treatment, you feel better. And then at some point, you're like, I don't know if this is really helping because I don't know that I really feel whatever. And then there's a point where you fall off a cliff and you're like, okay, yes, that was helping. And then they call me back up. And over time, the patient realizes to be able to tell those pre-cliff symptoms so they can come in before they fall off the cliff.
So it is kind of addictive.
Well, yes and no. It would be like anything that you took that made you feel better. Like if you did yoga and you're like, okay, wow, I can move my body so much better now. But you do yoga for a while and you're like, well, I don't really know that it's helping me that much. But then you stop doing yoga and then you do yoga again and you're like, whoa, that's right, my back pain does go away. Mm-hmm. You know, something like that. And so over time, maybe the first time they can go 2 to 4 weeks between treatments. The second time they might be able to go 4 to 6 weeks. I have some patients that come in every 6 months or once a year. So, of course, anytime you alter consciousness, it can be addictive. Anytime, even if it's marijuana.
Right, that's what I was wondering about the addictiveness of it.
Yep.
But it's better than painkillers in the fact that it's not as damaging for your body. It was like, why is this better than I mean, is there any long-term side effects that this could do to your body or not really?
So we've been using ketamine in anesthesia since the 1950s. Okay. So quite a long time. And before that, it was a horse tranquilizer.
Right. That's what we were always into.
A horse medication. So we have a lot of safety data on it. There are studies that say that it could affect your platelets, long-term use. There are studies that it could be addictive, especially if people are using the nasal spray ketamine or the oral lozenge ketamine, which sometimes people in these programs, they'll transition from the IV form to the oral or nasal form. And if you're using that 3 or 4 times a day, it can get addictive for sure. But if you're coming into my clinic once every 6 weeks to 6 months, the addictive potential just isn't,
Because it's the right amount of everything they're in and dosage, and it's being monitored closely.
You're being monitored. It's very clinical.
Okay.
We're
That
not at
makes
a
sense.
rave. You're not taking something from someone's, thing hanging off their necklace.
Right.
It's totally, totally different. And of course, they have to sign a contract that says if they ever access ketamine outside of the clinic, then we can't work together. If they're ever using any other kind of drugs, we can't work together. So there's this trust that's built up. And the idea is for them ketamine isn't the end-all be-all. It opens the doorway for deeper healing. So anytime someone's using ketamine and they have other therapists they work with, like they have a mental health team, I'll talk to them. If they have a chronic medical disease expert, that they're working with, I'll work with them. So that it's kind of this multimodal approach. So they might have their ketamine treatment, and for the next 2 weeks, they're so open to maybe neurofeedback or other types of biofeedback or tapping or whatever other modalities that they're using, even just talk therapy with their psychiatrist. They're more open for those next 2 weeks. So it's kind of a tool to get into that subconscious, to kind of move out those things that aren't helping them and to clear those patterns.
So when you say they can't be on other drugs while they're doing it, so what about like all their medications that they're prescribed on? If they're on like a heart medication, or
Oh
if
yeah,
they're
all
on
those are fine. Any recreational medication.
Oh, okay. So they could still be on any like antidepressants and stuff, but how do you know it's not interfering? How do you know it's working well? Like if they're on like, can't even think of one of those medications, if they're on like a antidepressant.
So oftentimes, the patients are able to start weaning off of those medications.
Because they're
healing. They might be on antidepressants because they can't sleep at night, and antidepressants affect your REM sleep, and they just give you a different kind of altered sleep. So, it could be that they do the ketamine therapy, and now they're sleeping better, and they can start to wean off of those medications. There's not a lot of drug interactions. Like I said, we've used this with anesthesia for the last 70 years, and, people are on all kinds of medications when they come in to have ketamine. And it's still used quite a lot in the emergency room because ketamine is safer in some regards for people that come in with trauma, better than some of the other anesthetics we have that can depress your heart or your breathing. With ketamine, your heart rate is preserved, your blood pressure is preserved, or even a little bit higher. Your breathing is preserved. So it's kind of has a higher safety profile in that way. So it's been used a lot with people that are on other medications. So it has a pretty good safety profile.
So if people want to undergo all this, do they contact you and they all have to go to San Francisco to get this treatment? Are you available for new?
I am winding down a little bit in my practice, but I would definitely be open to talking to anyone, helping them. If I can't help them, helping them find a provider that they can work with.
Okay, so you'll work with them on resources.
Yeah, for sure. I've helped people in Canada find resources, and there are people out there that are doing this more and more and more.
You said you're the best because you monitor. You're not giving them the 5 to 7 like other ones are.
Yeah. So. I like the way I really found that the way I do this practice is really helpful. But for other career reasons, I'm doing more pediatric anesthesia now, and there's other things in my life that are shifting. So I'm just not spending as much time in San Francisco. I used to be there 2 weeks a month so I could, always see people. Now I'm there maybe 1 day a month. It's just hard when you want to be able to really help somebody to walk them through it if you're only there 1 or 2 days a month. But I would definitely be willing to see someone, and talk to them on the phone and figure out,
Well, that's really nice of you volunteering your time like that. How about health insurances and coverage? Do they work a lot with that, or is it really an out-of-pocket expense?
So with our facility, we give them a super bill afterwards, and so they can submit that to their insurance. And what we found is about 50% of people get reimbursed about half of the cost of it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and it's
so insurances are working well with this. That's good.
They are.
That's good.
They are. Yeah. They are. but the climate's also changing. So there's a lot of legislation that's coming on board, which is part of the other reason I'm not doing as much work with this. Some legislation where, you know, some states won't allow physicians to give ketamine in this sense. McKesson, who's a drug distributor, they're one of our drug manufacturers, one of the big ones in the US, they will no longer sell ketamine to private practitioners, only to hospitals.
Oh.
So there's all these different stops in the process. Insurance companies say malpractice insurance companies say they won't insure certain physicians that work with it. You have to be, like for instance, in Oregon, you have to be a psychologist to work with ketamine.
Wow.
It's just interesting, all these things that are coming down. But the good news is because there is all this benefit, probably on the horizon in the next 1 or 2 years, there's going to be like Kaiser ketamine clinics. So affordable, safe, accessible, you know, it'll be kind of corporatized. It'll be kind of like Costco of ketamine clinics. But I think that's what's coming down the pipeline. So I think people will be able to get treatment. It won't be as individualized. And probably what will happen is they'll put you on the infusion and walk away, and you're kind of just sitting there on your own, like figuring out like what's happening. And then you do the integration afterwards.
Well, this is really fascinating. One of my closest friends who's watching right now has severe PTSD and has done everything like EMDR therapy. And so I would love for him to try this and probably talk to you about it because, you know, just people have gone through so much trauma. Seems like a really good solution.
Yeah, I've seen it just honestly do so much. You know, I've had patients say, after one session, I have spent the last 20 years on the couch talking to my therapist. I could have skipped all of that and done this one session and gotten just as much benefit. So it can be really, really, really powerful. Yeah, I think it's a good option for some people that are just, they've tried other things. They've tried antidepressants. They've tried talk therapy. They've tried all the other stuff, and they get a little bit of benefit. But I think there's so much in the consciousness world that we haven't explored yet. Like, this is just ketamine. Like, anesthesia involves dozens of mind-altering medications. And if we could access all of that for healing, like, the sky is the limit.
Right.
You know, like, there is so much opportunity, I think, with consciousness and healing and light, color, sound therapy and all of that. There is so much opportunity.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show today. Where can people get a hold of you? Is Facebook, is there a social media outlet that people can get a hold of you if they wanted to ask you some questions or direct message you?
So I think the best way would just be Dr. Debra at drdebragambrell.com.
Okay.
So D-E-B-R-A, Gambrell with 2 L's. Just email me and, you know, I'll try to help you out. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Debra.
You're welcome. And I did want to say, shout out, I am so happy to have met you. Like, we met like 6 months ago, and we've definitely like hit it off. And I love Clovis. Like, it's one of my favorite places in the whole world. So I had to just, you know, show you my new hat.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That is so
Isn't it
cool.
amazing?
And it's a hat on a boot. That's really cool in the middle.
So, in honor of Sparkle.
And Clovis.
And Clovis. When I wear this hat, I think of you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
Thank you for coming in. Everything Sparkle. You've been here before, but not here in the flesh.
Not here, no.
I love that. We went from virtual to.
It feels good to be here. Virtual was fun too because I was in my pajamas, but.
But you know what's funny about that? That's kind of like where we were, like literally metaphorically, because you were writing and you weren't actually physically doing the movie stuff, and now you're physically doing movie stuff as well. So it's like we've evolved into like doing things.
Yeah, I mean, I have paint on my hands from
Nice.
building set an hour ago.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we're back.
So that was really cool and interesting that you build your own sets.
I participate in just about everything.
That's
yeah.
that's going the extra mile there.
I think sometimes my crew would prefer if I didn't, but I am a Gemini, so I get bored easy. I want to be involved in a little bit of everything.
I like that. That's really important. So explain to the audience what you're doing. It's books, movies, books that turn into movies.
Yeah, movies that turn into books. So I am a writer and a director. And right now we're shooting a film in a week, actually. Wednesday we start principal photography. Based on cryptocurrency. It's kind of a sci-fi thriller.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. I haven't seen a movie yet on crypto. Well,
Yeah.
there should be because it's everywhere.
Such a big thing, right? Yeah. So, and it's got a kind of a cool sci-fi twist, which I appreciate, being a sci-fi author.
So you wrote this.
I co-wrote it. So Amy K. Duboff is the writer on it, principal writer. So, and we've partnered on a book prior. So now we're partnering on a film. Which is pretty cool.
Okay, I like this. So who was this? Her idea?
It was kind of a mutual idea. It's
Were you guys involved in getting crypto? Is that kind of part of it?
Not really. It's something I've dabbled in a little bit, but I'm definitely not like hardcore into it whatsoever. Although I'm kind of interested now from the research that we did. So it's kind of a fascinating space.
I was just wondering about that because I've had people on there talk about Bitcoin and talk about crypto, which was better, which was not, and I just kind of wondered your take on it or like what you guys.
So I have mined Ethereum, I guess, but I'm not endorsing it in any way. I don't really know what I'm doing. So.
Okay, so but with the research though, didn't you kind of get?
I learned that I didn't know anything about it. That's what the research taught me.
But you still don't know if you want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's so cool. So sci-fi involving crypto. Explain a little bit of the story that you can.
Well, there's an embedded secret message in cryptocurrency algorithms that is a big secret conspiracy, and I'll leave it at that. But
Oh, it's like the Da Vinci Code?
yeah,
but
we're
like
kind of
with
all
crypto?
participating inadvertently in deciphering a hidden message inside the cryptocurrency.
I love that. That's pretty cool.
And it only has one character, so there's like a lot of like shadowy figures and whatever, but we only ever see one person's face. So it's a very intense thriller, and kind of at its core, it's a mental health movie. So it's really cool. It's a really complex story. Yeah.
This is twist. I love different things. I'm so tired of watching the same thing over and over in different variations. So this sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a very intense story, like very much like in the main character's head.
So who's the main actor that we're just gonna see?
Michaela Iverson from Utah. So she's flying out Monday, I think. So she's very excited. We'll be shooting it up near Yosemite. So
Oh, that sounds visually stunning.
yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I've already done some drone footage. Already done a car chase, which was super fun. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then you're in the second book of a trilogy. You just came out with the second book. You're working on the third.
Yep.
You came here to talk about the first book of the trilogy. So tell
Yes.
us more about what's going on.
So it's the Soul Saga trilogy. First book's Revolution, and it's performing very well. People seem to like it, which is awesome. Very encouraging for me to.
They gotta like it, or else you're like.
Or why write more? Yeah. And then the second book came out. That's been very well received. It's awesome to like talk to people about the first book, and then they read the second book, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad you did this," or "I can't believe this happened," or this character changed in this cool way. It's a more intimate kind of fan experience than the films, because it's always kind of a buffer between me and the people who watch my movies. But the author experience is being very personal. So I've gone to some conventions. I just went to the 20 books for 50K convention in Vegas. I got to do a book signing. I got to talk to fans. Like, people recognize my name in the hallway, and like,
I love that. Look
somebody
at
bought me
you.
coffee. They were like, "Oh my God, I loved your book. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" And I was like, "Sure." So it's cool. It's a neat experience.
That's so cool. So the third book, I mean, when you had the vision, you're like, I'm gonna write a trilogy, yada yada, and you get to writing it. Do you go off script and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, then you're like, it just takes a different form than how you originally saw it?
For sure. And the weird thing is I wrote a pilot, a TV pilot, and then I turned it into this book. I took the backstory and started writing the backstories of the books. So book 3 actually catches up to the TV pilot. So now I feel like I'm on like well-trod ground. Like I've done 50 revisions of this pilot. So I know the characters really well. I know the plot really well. But up until this point, I've been very much like exploring character background, and but I had to get to this point, and now I really have kind of I know what I'm doing now with book 3. So I've been having a lot of fun kind of exploring the characters in a very like deep, intimate way, because we can get in their heads in a book where we can't do that in a TV show, right?
Right.
So I think that the characters are very crisp now by book 3.
So how do you have time to do all this? I mean, do you just put on a different hat because you have to get all into filmmaking mode and then all into book writing mode? Or do you kind of take it one day at a time where you're like, today I'm just going to write and tomorrow I'm just going to film? How does it work?
I don't sleep a lot, really, is what it boils down to. I do all my writing in the morning.
Okay.
So I found that Hollywood kind of wakes up about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I do all of my writing between like 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. And then I've got my filmmaker hat on from like 1 to like 8 or 9.
Okay.
And then I kind of work on other stuff, administration stuff or whatever, in the evening. Yeah. So, but I do it all. Like I'll have like 3 different screens going, and I'll have bookkeeping on one, my novel on another, and editing a script or editing trailers or whatever on the main one. It's kind of all over the place. If I could focus, I'd be a lot more productive.
I mean, this seems pretty like fast, so that you're banging out stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to by January 5th have 500,000 words published this year. So
how do you keep track of that?
well, every book, like my first book is like 160,000+ words. My second book is 125,000 words. Book 3 is going to be about 150,000 words the way it's
Wow,
paced
no
now.
one's ever come and told me that. Like, no writer has ever told me that before.
Oh, really?
This many words published. I love that.
Yeah.
No, about that, having that many words, having to keep track of how many words. I love that.
I'm goal-oriented, right? As a filmmaker, it's like 90 pages. It's a feature film. I've got to hit that benchmark. So I drive other authors nuts, I think, because I'm like, well, how many words should this book be? And they're like, just write the book, and then we'll figure it out later. I'm like, no, I need a goal.
I've thought of pages. I've never actually thought of it in terms of words. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. Well, because formatting changes, right? So an ebook to paperback
That's
changes,
very
so-
true. So yeah, now it has to be about the words.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we could buy all of your stuff on Amazon, right?
Yep. You can find my links at my website, thejamesfox.com. And then I'm up on Amazon, James Fox Revolution or James Fox The Soul Saga. And then crypto-movie.com for the movie that we're shooting. So that's coming up quick.
So where does she live? Your co-writer, is she local or is she?
She's local now, yeah. She was living in Italy, but when the pandemic all happened, she moved to California. So it's kind of a weird thing, but yeah, weird story. I'll leave it for her to tell, though.
I would love to have her come on and tell. That would be really fun. How'd you meet her? How'd you meet up with her and start doing stuff with her?
I was a fan of her books, so The Catacomb Universe by A.K. Duboff, and I reached out to her just on
I
Facebook.
love that. That's a great story. That's really cool.
And I reached out and was like, have you ever thought about doing an adaptation? and she actually responded, and like we got into a conversation about it, and she was like, yeah, well, let's see what you can do. And I went away for like 3 months, and I think she thought I just flaked.
Forgot, yeah.
But then I sent her a script. Me and my writing partner sent her an adaptation, and he's a fan as well. So, and she loved it. So we've been working
She
together
must have
since.
liked your work because that's a very strong relationship to co-write.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it's very.
Well, and she invited me to one of the books I wrote this year is called In Darkness Dwells, and it's written in her Catacomb universe. So we wrote it together, and that's a very intimate thing, like having somebody write a book in your universe that it's your baby. She's been working on since she was young.
Yeah, like if we started doing Lord of the Rings stuff, and then people, yeah,
Right,
that is very cool. She invited you into her world.
Yeah, it was cool. And she kind of empowered me to just go nuts with it. So it was a lot of fun. I had a good time with it.
So what happens after the trilogy is done? I mean, I know you're probably 5 steps ahead of all the stuff you want to do. So what's...
Well, I will say that if people like the first trilogy, I have a second trilogy planned. So I think I'm going to take a break and write some fantasy, take a break from the sci-fi. Next year I'll write 3 or 4 fantasy books. But if the fans respond with positive feedback for the first trilogy of the Soul Saga, there will be a second trilogy in it. So that's the plan.
So as far as feedback goes, do people like your writing more, your filmmaking more? I'm sure you've heard a little bit.
I think my writing, actually. I think my writing. The films are fun, but I think people get more of me. They can see more of me. I just had one of my best friends. We've been friends for 35 years. 2 nights ago, he was down for Thanksgiving, told me that he could recognize me in one of the main characters of the Soul Saga. He was like, I recognize when this happened to you. I recognize these little Easter eggs. I used to do this thing in high school called a Recipe for World Domination, which was just my to-do list. It was just a fun name for to-do list, because I think to-do list sucks. Like, don't call it that. Call it a Recipe for World Domination, 1 step at a time.
I love I love that. That's really cool.
But anyway, that's in the book.
That would be a good shirt. You need to have that. You need to have that made. Like,
Yeah, right?
I'll rock a shirt that says that.
Nice, I'll get you one. Anyway, it's in book 2, and he was like, I recognize that from high school. So, you know, I think you get to see a little bit more who I am in my books than you do my films.
So with your filmmaking, okay, sometimes you take another script, or you take a story, make it into a script. You're good at doing adaptations, that's kind of your thing, right?
Yep.
And then that, so you write them, direct them. Do you act in that? What do you all do for typically?
I started acting, actually. That was how I got into the film industry.
I could see you acting.
It's the toughest job I've ever done, though. Like, I have so much respect for actors because it is the toughest job. I couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it, I'll be honest. But I loved the directing part of it. I loved that we kind of got to play in that guy's world, right? On my first set. And I was always a dungeon master playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. So like I immediately was like, oh man, he's like a dungeon master for the film world. Like, that's pretty cool. So for me, it kind of felt like a natural fit to like slide into that role of storyteller. And I love it. I love being on set. It's like playtime for me. Yeah, so I do a lot of producing, I do a lot of writing, it's kind of focused more now on adaptations than anything else. But the directing is kind of my first love.
What's the biggest challenge that you've faced when doing this and directing and making movies? What's something that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming at all? Like, there's a lot of things that come up that you do not expect making a movie. So what was like one of the worst or craziest experiences for you?
Craziest experiences? I suffocated on set once. My first feature, actually, I don't know if I should share this story, but I'm going to anyway. Why not?
We already went there.
Yeah, it was the last shot. I wanted a cameo. I put on the space suit that my production designer made. It was the last setup, last shots, martini shot. Like, people were already like breaking out beers and champagne and whatever. We had a bunch of kids on set that were in the film. They wanted to see the last shot, and the suit was airtight. So I was standing under the lights, getting pre-light, camera was setting up, and I started seeing all these sparkles, and I was like, oh man, that must look really good on camera, because there's like this lens on the helmet. And then I blacked out.
You didn't know you were suffocating?
Didn't even realize I was suffocating, because you're still breathing, right? It's just, you start feeling kind of weird. You're
oh
like,
my gosh.
And I woke up, and the whole crew was around me. You know that scene in the movie, cameras pointed up, there's a ring of faces looking at you? It's exactly how it looks. Exactly how it looks. Everybody was like,
you scared the children.
Oh man, it was like, I was like, well, now we need to pay for therapy, and it was bad.
That's an awesome story. I've never heard anything like that, and I've heard a lot of...
Yeah, right? So, and then I was like, well, did we get the shot? Like, this is the first thing out of my mouth was, did we get the shot? And my producer was like, no, we didn't get the shot. This is done. We're done.
I would have done that too. I did all that for nothing.
Right, and I was like, I'm in this thing. Let's do this. We're lit. Let's get it going. And she's like, oh my God, I'm going to murder you. It was amazing. I loved it. We got the shot, though. It looked great.
That is, so can we watch that? Where's that at?
Not right now. It's in negotiations, so it's been bought and shelved. So they're doing some re-edits or whatever on it, and hopefully we'll see it one day.
I want to see it and be like, that's where James
It
was.
did premiere at Seattle International Film Festival, so there are trailers for it out there back when we had it with the film festival circuit and everything. So it's pretty cool. You can't see my shot, but yeah.
What can we watch of yours? Is there anything like available now that we can kind of see online or?
Yeah. I can probably provide some links. I've done a lot of really cool shorts. I have a couple films that are getting ready to come out. Flesh Off the Grill and Quarantine Island. Those are kind of the big ones. Those should be either limited theatrical or available on major streamers. I was a producer on Avocado Toast.
Why does that sound familiar?
It's out on Amazon right now. Tyler Farr, director. Great film. Hilarious. Michaela Iverson is actually in it.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard about this before.
Oh, it's so good. It's so funny. Basically, a guy like my age decides he wants to be a millennial and just kind of like changes his whole life and goes very wrong. It's amazing. I love it.
I love that.
Even
That's
just
cool.
thinking of it, I crack up.
So where can we see those then?
It's on Amazon.
So
Avocado
that's
Toast.
on Amazon.
Yep.
I could just look up it and then. Oh my God, I gotta see that. And then, so you were doing shorts initially, but now you pretty much just do features for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. I just do features now.
Shorts were kind of like a practice, get your feet wet.
Well, it was more. I really kind of thought that the industry would go into like short format, and it has, but I found that I didn't like it too much. All my shorts wound up being in this weird like nebulous 30-minute range.
Well, yeah, you're a trilogy writer. I think that'd be very hard for you.
Yeah, 5-minute shorts are not my
You
thing.
can't even handle writing just one book in a
I
story.
know.
Like,
I don't even write one book at the same time. Like I'll have Final Draft open, writing a script, and then book 1 and 2 open, writing both, because it's like, oh, I have a great idea for next book.
that's what happens in the creative process. You
It really is a process. So, yeah. So I basically got to the point where I was just like, I don't like the short format. So, like now, half-hour episodics are the shortest thing I write.
Okay, so are you good about posting where you're gonna be, like when you're gonna be? So if you do a book signing and we want to go,
Yeah,
see.
Instagram is probably the best place to catch
Okay,
that
so you tell us
information.
when you're gonna be somewhere, and then if people can just DM you if they want like an autographed copy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Please.
So then we can kind of just buy it off you. Then do we have to go through Amazon or all that? Or we just buy it and then give you the.
Yeah,
or-
no, and if you're local, like I'll meet up with you and have coffee. Like I love being direct with people. Like it's, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like.
So all you crazy fans out there. Well, as it reminds me of that one Stephen King movie with Kathy Bates.
Misery.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Not that one, please.
If you're normal, meet up.
Yeah, no, Instagram is probably the best place to chat with me, or Facebook. And then you can reach out directly. I'll do a signed copy or whatever. And then, yeah, I post all of my like signings on Instagram usually. The best way to get like all the knowledge is to sign up for my newsletter.
Oh, how come
Yeah.
I'm not on that? How come you didn't tell me that last time?
I don't think I had it yet.
Oh,
I think it's kind of a new
okay.
thing.
I'll sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, you can sign up for my newsletter through Instagram. I've got one of those solo.
Is it like a
links.
monthly thing that
Yeah,
you can send?
I try to do it
That's
monthly.
perfect.
Every once in a while, I'll send out like if there's something big happening, I'll send out like another one. But I try not to spam anybody.
Well, no, that's cool. I mean, more people should do that because every time when people come on, like want to hear stuff, that would be perfect. Then I don't, if I just get blasted once a month, then I can know what's going on and be.
Yep, like new book releases, new film stuff, giveaways. I just did a giveaway for like
Oh.
a special book. Yeah,
We get things too. I'm
Yeah.
definitely signing up for that.
we're gonna give away some crypto set gear and whatever stuff too. So be ready for that.
Are you going to give away cryptocurrency?
I might as well just throw cash out the window, right? I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe.
I mean, hey, maybe you get a crypto sponsor and they're going to be like, you're whether you want to or not, you're kind of plugging it.
Yeah. I mean, Ethereum. Call me.
Unless something really weird. I don't know what the ending is on this.
I mean,
It could be bad.
it's interesting. I'm not gonna give it away. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's definitely interesting.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show, James. And I need to get those autograph copies. I'm gonna buy. I want to come to your book signing for real and really like support. So
Awesome. Well,
keep
thank
me
you for having me.
posted.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Hi, Esther. Thank you for coming on Everything Sparkle Day. I'm so happy you are from London. I love this.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's nice and cold here. So if you want to do a swap, be my guest.
It's been a while. It's been about a good, maybe, I think it's been a year since I've had my last guest from England on. But
Okay.
well, I love England. I've been there during this time of year, and it was very cold.
Yes. Well, if you want to do a swap any other time, like I said, be my guest because it's quite cold.
So it's cool. You're one of Vita's friends. We just had Vita on last month. She designed my gown, gorgeous. She's so talented at what she does.
Yes.
And then you're her talented friend. And so we want to hear all about Esther from England.
So where do you want to start, Sparkle?
You started, Esther. You tell us what's going on.
Well, what's going on? What am I? What do I do? Well, basically, I call myself an entrepreneur creative. There's lots of different things that I do. So the first thing, that's my baby. It's my magazine. I've got a digital online magazine. It's quarterly, but also you can get it print on demand. And I must say, if I say so myself, high five. It's a luxury lifestyle magazine, but the theme is called Turning Point to Your Lifestyle, Your Well-Being. And it's just to encourage and inspire people that if you are at the turning point of your life, if you read this magazine, there's content in there that will support you as you turn the corner, because we're always constantly at different turning points in our lives.
We are, yeah.
And sometimes we get stuck. Sometimes we don't know where to go. We don't know who to reach out to. And so the magazine just gives, it's a bit like a sat nav, Sparkle, to say to people, you can, because we have. So that's my baby. And the other
You
thing,
highlight stories of people that were at turning points, and like, what is that like really what you guys, it's lifestyle, but a lot of people give their human interest stories.
yes, they do. So it's lifestyle. So it's a lifestyle magazine. So inside it's the content. It's got fashion, entertainment, health and well-being, spirituality, humor, because humor is healing, and humor is
That's good. I'm glad you have humor in there.
got humor. And sometimes I profile different artists. And when I say artists, I mean those who paint, those who draw, those who, are great photographers, because it gives them a great platform to show their expression of, those turning point moments. And it's really interesting because there's a great photographer from New York who contributes to the magazine, and her images, she could take an image of a leaf or a flower, Sparkle, but she's able to capture almost the essence and the soul of that leaf. And, it usually ties in with the theme of what Turning Point is about. Incredible.
So where can we look for it's at turningpoint.com? Where can we register and actually get the magazine? I'd love to subscribe.
Okay, well, it's a bit long because my website needs updating. But if you go to issuu.com/Esther Austin Global, you can get it on the Issuu platform. I would give you my website, but the website is currently undergoing treatment, so you won't get much there. But if you go to issuu.com/Esther Austin Global, you'll see the digital online version there.
Oh, that would be great. I'm really interested, and I like that.
Brilliant. And what else do I do, Sparkle? I'm a stylist and I design. It's when you're creative, you can actually dip into that pool. I could say it's like having a Mary Poppins bag. Mary Poppins bag, it's forever. You're ever dipping into this bag of goodies. And so for me, I want to explore and express every aspect that I am, without apology as well. And so another part of who I am is I style, and I'm getting into designing even more as well. And my other pet love is that on a Sunday I have a show between 8 and 10 where I interview legends and pioneers from within the industry, as well as upcoming indie artists. So that's a
Wow.
segment of what I do, I would say.
That's really cool. So you're really in contact with a lot of creatives. Is it around the world or primarily in England?
No, it's around the world, and I would say I get a lot of traction from the States actually, which is really cool. But it's around the world. For me, England it's a nice, great place, but for me as a creative, it can be a little stifling. So I'm, wheedling my way into the States, and wherever else that understands my creativity and where I can really express it and explore it and go, wow.
So where can we if somebody wanted to hire you as a stylist, where can we do that? And you can give people, because you do that, you said globally as well.
I do. So I can give you my email address, and they can send me just get me there. So my email address is Esther, ESTHER, at esteraustinglobal.biz.
And you're on social media, right?
I'm in social media, so you can find me on the Esther Austin Global. You can find my show on the Sofa with Esther, and the magazine is called Turning Point Magazine.
Turning Point Magazine on. What was the middle one you said on the
on the Sofa with Esther? That's
I would.
Media
I feel like I'm on the sofa with Esther now. Well, tell us about some of your experience. So, tell me about somebody that you've interviewed that was like really interesting.
Oh wow!
And I know you have lots and lots. Just something that
gosh, I would say the 3 degrees, the legendary 3 degrees. Old school, because they're so funny, but there's so much wisdom there, and we practically spend our time giggling throughout the interviews. And also another group that I would say are the Emotions. I think they say, is it Nights of it? No, they sang Flowers and Don't Ask My Neighbor, a real old school soul band. And, we spent our time giggling, but it was just so nice for me. It's like being in the presence of my aunties. Sorry, ladies, because, they're just so funny, but there's this engagement of as if we've known each other forever.
I love those. And that's so much fun when you get somebody like that.
It is. And also Sister Sledge is the same as Sister Sledge. They are, it's the same. They're so full of humility. They're really grounded in themselves. I'm like, this is so cool.
That's super cool. So who do you aspire to interview that you haven't interviewed yet? Like if you could choose somebody.
Oh, wow.
I know there's a lot. I know it's a big list.
Oh my days. Oh gosh, I can't think of anyone. I got brain fog. Ask me another question, Spark, and I might come back to that.
No problem. So have you styled anybody that we know?
Not yet, no. Most of them have been friends or those, within London, at fashion shows, but nobody major at this moment in time. I've got 1 or 2 things in the pipeline, but yeah, not anyone on a global level at this moment in time. It's all been local, or when I've been to Barbados, say, or when I go to the States, but nobody major, I would say.
And so do you do a lot of designs also like Vita? Because I know you style, which sounds like you said it transcends into like being a designer. What are some of the things you've actually created?
Well, it's interesting because yesterday I was on the red carpet, myself and the gentleman from Ellen Soul Radio. We had to go and cover an event, and I put together this dress, but the thing is I couldn't get the sleeves done at the last moment. And it's freezing out here.
Oh no.
But so what I did is because I tend to visualize things, and from that visual concept, I'm able to sort of put it down onto paper and then cut it out. But for the life of me, I just couldn't get the sleeves on, and so I had 5 minutes to get ready before my cab turned up. And so what I did, I found a jacket, I put the jacket over it, and then I had to change the trousers I was wearing to match. And I got stopped so many times, at the event yesterday because it was an unusual look, but it was a good look as well. And also what I had to do is I've got some pins, and they're pretty pins, but I had to pin the top of the dress up so it didn't fall down. So it was being held up there underneath the jacket. But I walked out like it was $1 million, and it looked really great.
Wow, that is so like on the fly. Was it stressful, or you're just like, oh, I'm gonna make this work?
It was a little stressful because my room looked like a bomb site because I couldn't find anything because I'd been cutting all day, and I couldn't find my handbag. And then I had to just calm myself, found the pins, just pinned it up. And because for me, I'm the sort of person, Sparkle, I go to plan A, plan B. And last night I had to go to plan Z.
Oh my.
But it rocked. So yeah.
So I know you do a lot of things. What what's your favorite? And I bet that's really hard to pin down. Would it be like the fashion, the magazine, or the interviews?
I love it. It is hard to pin down because the magazine and the interviews sort of go together for me, and then I've got the fashion. So I would say both of them. You know, I both of them, because the fashion and the styling. I always say, create your own unique individual style. You know, dress according to how your soul feels, man, because we don't have to be clones like everybody else. We can be
Right.
individuals. So how can you bring out the individual? And that's what I love when I dress. How can I bring out the different aspects of Esther? And you know, I'm a Dr. Martin girl. I love Dr. Martens, or sometimes clunky boots.
I do
And
too.
you can walk, you can run in them, and sometimes even if I'm going out, if I've got a long dress on, I can hide my DMs underneath there and still look elegant, you know. Yeah. So if that answers your question, I love both them, the media and the fashion. They're both sort of on par with each other.
So you still haven't thought of the answer to the question of who you want to interview that you haven't
I'm
interviewed yet?
trying to think, but it's 2 a.m. in the morning. It's gonna kind of hard to think.
I know. Thank you so much for bearing with us during the time zone change. That is very impressive.
I'm good. I'm just trying to think who I'd like to interview. I really can't think because there's so many people, and I can't even think of one at this moment in time.
I know there really is a lot of people. What are your favorite kind of interviews? Is it really just musicians, or what's like as far as like artists go?
Okay, well, they could be musicians, singers, songwriters, producers, sometimes those from the film industry, and quite a few in the film industry that I've interviewed over the past year have been around, you know, more sort of poignant topics like sex trafficking, or domestic violence, because there is another side of me. I do a lot of personal development work, and so, you know, my remit is quite broad, but it's still quite contained, if that makes sense.
Right. Wow. That's really cool. So they're not just talking about what they have coming out. You're actually going into deep topics with them.
Absolutely, because the other side of what I do, Sparkle, I do lots of, like I said, personal development work. I'm a keynote speaker around personal development and stuff. But also I have a real passion of, I work with clients who have like emotional and mostly emotional blocks, emotional pain. And I help them to work through those aspects so that they can, you know, live life. But they have to understand why they are where they're at, and then they have to understand how they can get out of it. And I've got a motto, Sparkle, that says it may not be easy, but it's possible. So for me, it all ties in. I mean, it might seem a lot, but each pocket, you know, everything that I do, from the fashion to the radio show, everything it is about reaching out and inspiring, reaching out and touching people's lives.
I love that. Do you infiltrate that a little bit in your magazine where you talk about some of these human interest stories, like the human trafficking and all that?
Definitely, because for the autumn issue, I interviewed someone around sex trafficking, and it's in the magazine, and also in the autumn issue, and I'll send you a link afterwards, Sparkle. There's a young lady that went through quite a lot when she was younger, you know, rape. She was gang raped, but she was raped by her brother as well. And she shares openly about her healing process, how she dealt with that, how she came through that. And then there's a gentleman in the magazine who talks about his childhood trauma and how he used martial arts to help him deal with his anger. And, you know, a lot of it is about how does he accept what's happened to him and to make peace about that. So
I love that. I love these stories. Well, Esther, you're a fascinating person.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I love that you're so well-rounded and do all these things. That's really exciting.
Keeps me grounded as well. You know, I always say we're constantly evolving, aren't we? If we choose to, we're constantly growing. And, you know, don't be afraid to look at the man in the mirror, because when you look at the man in the mirror, you might think, oh, but then it gets easier, because it's that place of acceptance. Like, okay, this is what I got to deal with, because if I don't deal with this, I can't really move forward. but it's not always that. But it's not always easy to move forward, because sometimes there's fear that keeps you stuck. There are old patterns that keeps you stuck, and sometimes the people around you as well. And all those things you have to try to navigate. But,
What does 2022 have in store for you? What's something you're looking forward to?
I am looking forward to getting the magazine onto a much bigger platform, and there's lots of conversations that I'm having that's going to make that happen. I am looking forward. When you've been working towards your dreams for so long, Sparkle, and then all of a sudden they start to go bam, and I see it. So that's what 2022 has in store for me. Everything that I've been on the grind for such a long time, trust me, 2022 is just going to go bam, and it's already started. So I don't want to be too specific, but that's what's on the cards, so to speak.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Esther. I can't wait to interview you again in 6 months. Hopefully not at 2 a.m. And then really see where, because I just feel like you're going so fast, and that I can't wait to see what happens next for you.
And thank you so much for having me on. Don't worry about the time. I'm good. I've just enjoyed our chat. So thank you very much, Sparkle.
Thank you, Esther.
Bye.
Felt right in the morning, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh, I must confess, dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.